Romano Ward. There's all these things that we found in the last 10, 15 years as we have been doing more research with channelopathy, the concept that you have long QTs, you have abnormal ions, and the way things are repolarizing in the heart are a genetic issue in some people. And because they're genetically benign versus genetically dormant, genetically, apparent, they're paternal, maternal, however they all move, you just have to be aware that there's so many different things that we're finding at such an alarming rate that an early EKG is actually a really good thing on kids. Just keep that in mind. If you're doing sports, you need to have an EKG through sports physical. Whether that's done every time, it should be done every time. This is how you hear the story of that 12-year-old kid that was playing basketball and dropped dead because they had a long QT and then they had a PVC and they had the RNT phenomenon and they went to torsades and died. It's terrible situations when this happens. Would it have been caught by an EKG? Not necessarily, but probably you'd have seen a long QT and they would have given you a heads up to say, hold on a second, let's just do some testing here, and that would be good to know. So again, not something you ever want to find out after it's too late, and doesn't always happen on kids, but all this really is just one of the many things as an example that can have a long QT syndrome greater than half the length of the R to R interval. Now, for example, a QTC is basically devised to a 60 beat per minute or 1 QRS a second beat. So if it's more than 500 for a QTC, that would be considered a long R to R interval. So that's just one of those ways to kind of keep in mind. So this picture here, you can see that if you go from, for example, this guy here to this guy here, if we make a mark right there at the end of it, that is obviously, from this point of the QRS to this point of the QRS, you could say that is over halfway of that length. So that's a long QRS that's really dragging out its repolarization, and that T wave is just hanging out there. So a long QT there means that you're at a higher risk of somewhere, let's say in here, in that relative refractory period, you may actually have the next QRS happen and half the heart is depolarized, half the heart's repolarized and ready to go, and then you go into an RNT phenomenon where you have a polymorphic VTAC that's generated from having only half of the heart repolarized. So keep it